Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of January 2019. So first of all, Happy New Year. Second of all, sorry I didn't have that much video content this month. What can I say? Life kind of gets in the way. I got the flu as well, so I was just kind of, not really able to produce content. And I'm sorry for that. The other thing is, I have a Discord now, in case you don't know. There's a link in the description. It's free to join. Come on in, hang out with everybody. But other than that, let's just get on with it. Let's get on to the video game pickups. Now, this month, particularly at the beginning of the month, I traveled around quite a bit, and so that afforded me an opportunity to check out some different stuff I hadn't seen before. This year, for New Year's, I took my mom as kind of a post-Christmas gift. I spent a whole shit ton of miles, and I took her down to Guam. That's where she wanted to go. I had been there last year, and I thought it was pretty neat, so she wanted to check it out. For those who don't know, Guam is part of the United States. It's a territory of the U.S. that doesn't get nearly enough coverage, because that place is awesome. Yeah, I really like it down there. So what my travel route had me go through Japan. Funny enough, I went through Tokyo, got to spend one night in Tokyo. Actually ended up staying at the same like airport hotel that I had been in last time because it was cheap and I knew it was good. And then went down to Guam. Ironically, despite going to Japan, I never actually picked up anything in Japan, yet still got some Japanese pickups, you'll see. But most of the stuff I got, at least at the beginning of the video here, is from Guam, which was unexpected. So Guam, like I said, it's a U.S. territory. It has all the American stuff, although there's certain obvious exceptions. Like some stores just don't exist there. Like Best Buy doesn't exist there, but Kmart does, There's a couple of GameStops on the island, and you guys know me, GameStop is not really something I like to support. I've said it before, I'll dance on their grave when they're dead. And because every time I go in there, there's just some fucking awful experience that I'm just like, fuck, like why did I go in there? That said, I still was in a mall and there was a GameStop. So I went inside and checked it out. And it was kind of eerie. Like I went into, I forget exactly what I was doing. I went into a GameStop and I was just wandering around, just looking at stuff. Because I didn't plan to buy anything. I was just looking around. And the first thing I saw that actually caught my eye was this. It's a cool figure from Conker's Bad Fur Day of Conker. Now, to be honest with you, you see some toys and stuff behind me. I'm not really that much for collecting figurines and things. It's generally there's a reason. And in this case, it was just because it's Conker. I love those games. The character does not get nearly enough love. Those two games, it's really just a game and its remake, because the Game Boy Color game is a completely different thing. And I know he has that cameo in Diddy Kong Racing, but like outside of that, you really don't see him in anything. And if I guess it's Xbox branded, of course, it's actually very funny that the Xbox One became like the definitive place to play Conker, because you can play the Rare Replay N64 version, or you can play the original Xbox backwards compatible version. So it's kind of neat. But yeah, they have this figure by Totaku, and it's kind of like an amiibo basically. But yeah, I just wanted to get that because that was cool. So I bought that at a GameStop in Guam for $10. And I believe while I was in there, I texted my buddy Kyle and I was just like, yeah, look at this thing, because I didn't know if he cared about Conker. And he responded and he was just like, oh, you're in a GameStop? Look for this. And I was like, okay. And I found it. It's a game called City Skylines, the Xbox One edition. Basically like a Sim City, kind of clone. Not normally the type of game I would actually bother picking up, but I got it because he said so. He basically said, like, it's a GameStop exclusive. It's actually getting very hard to find. So if you see it, you should grab it. Now, I didn't really have a problem finding it, so I can't speak to that, but I'll trust his judgment on that type of thing because he's usually pretty good about that. So yeah, got that. Those two things together. And that was my first GameStop experience, which was, it was okay. Unfortunately, the box in this case was rather damaged, and that was before I got it. But I looked online and finding the Conker figure was surprisingly hard, so to just get it right there is fine. Because I haven't decided yet if I'm going to take it out of the packaging or not. Probably not going to, but yeah, there you go. Later, I went to a completely different mall and ended up at a different GameStop. There's two, I think there's only two on that island. So I went to the other one, and I went in there for actually a specific purpose this time, because after I'd picked this up, I forget where I got this information, but somebody told me, hey man, if there's a GameStop, you should go in and find this one particular Nintendo Switch game, which, lucky enough, I found. Katamari Damacy REROLL. This game is, at least in the US, is exclusive to GameStop. and it's already become kind of a rather hard title to find. And a bunch of people are saying like, I look all the time, I can't find it anywhere, blah blah blah. And I thought, I might have a chance, finding it here in Guam, in one of these GameStops. There's a good chance that nobody gave a shit. So I walked in there and yeah, they had it. So immediately I grabbed that. And then because I was basically just kind of killing time, I'm walking around with this and I'm just looking at stuff. And all of a sudden, GameStop starts doing what it does. One of the employees comes up to me, he's like, yo man, what's up? Like the usual, what you expect. He's like, hey man, you need any help? That type of conversation. That's kind of where I was expecting it. But because it's GameStop, it gets more invasive. Next question was like, yo, what's your name? What's your phone number? Do you have an account with us? That kind of thing. And I was just like, okay. So I gave him my name, I gave him the phone number, because I do, but it's like, an old basic registration account. So he's like clicking around on stuff and he's like, oh man, good news. Like you had a birthday last month, so you got a 20% off all used games coupon. And I was like, oh shit, because like GameStop, what up? Like you're doing me a solid here, that's great. So I was like, so just to clarify, and I remember saying this very specifically, I was like, just to be sure, what you're saying is I get 20% off of all used games that I buy during this transaction. He's like, yeah. I said stackable, like I could buy a ton of them and it would be 20% off all of them. He goes, yeah, exactly. And I was like, all right, man. So I wandered around and I started just grabbing stuff, like stuff it was already, it's GameStop, so it's used stuff, but it's a little cheaper, but then 20% off of that, it's nice, this is nice. So I decided to go around and grab a bunch of things. And I went up to the register with all this stuff, same guy, and he's scanning, he's like, all right, cool, Katamari, no problem. And then he grabs a couple other things and he's like, and he says the total, and I was like, it seemed a little higher than I was expecting. And I was like, is that with the 20% off? He's like, yeah. And I was like, that's 20% off of everything. He's like, no, that's just for one of the games. And I was like, okay, well, apply it to the rest. And he's like, no. And I was like, we just talked about it. You said it would apply to all of them. And he was just like, right, we did, right. He's clicking, like, or make it look like he's doing something. And he's like, right, I don't think I could do that. And I was like, okay, but is that overridable? Because we did talk about this and you said they would be. He's like, right. Back to this routine. He's like, right, no, man, it's not gonna work. You can only work on one of them. But if it makes, but these two games, he pulled out two specific. He's like, right, so these actually qualify because they were under this price, so they're buy one, get one. So like I kind of, those two are kind of still basically the same thing. And then you can just pick one of these games. And I was like, fucking GameStop, man. So after that situation occurred, most of the stuff I picked out, I ended up not getting. And what I ended up getting was the following. The first two I got were the ones that he had mentioned where, these two are like basically buy one, get one because of a different sale going on, which was the terrible, I know it's terrible, Ghostbusters game. This was meant to cash in on the 2016 pile of shit movie. Yeah, this game is awful. I knew that going into it. That's no secret. This is just kind of like to pick up more Ghostbusters merch. Funny enough, I got this before the new movie was announced. So that's kind of cool. I also know this game's kind of hard to find now. And it probably at some point will be more valuable just because of the name attached to it. Not because it's any good, but because it probably will never get re-released because it wasn't a good game, not even close to it, but just the fact that it is Ghostbusters. Yeah, but that said, it was a few bucks in that regard, so I was like, okay, fine. And the other one that was part of that deal was Tempest 4000, which the Tempest games are actually pretty awesome. So yeah, I was happy about that, both for Xbox One. And then the game I ended up getting for the 20% off thing was Call of Duty World War II, which I have not played yet. And the reason I kind of got away from Call of Duty stuff because Call of Duty became this franchise that is what makes it popular. I know a lot more people like it for this reason, is all the multiplayer stuff. Like, I'm not that guy. I've never been that guy, never will be that guy. I like single player, interesting campaigns, and Call of Duty got away from that. I liked it when it was more history based, and then when they started getting into modern warfare stuff and all this ghost space shooting bullshit, I was like, I'm done, bye. But everyone said that this was kind of a nice little homage to the past, and so on that grounds, I wanted to get it. Now, of course, because it's GameStop, I got back here, I popped it in my Xbox One X, and it didn't work. So I had to take it to a different GameStop, and to their credit, the swap was easy. They just, okay, there you go. But still, it's like fucking GameStop, man. Like, there's always issues. Although I paid for it with a gift card. I know not everybody out there flies anywhere near as much as I do, but here's a little pro tip for anybody who flies, at least on United Airlines, because that's my like go-to. Because pro tip, rather than always try to find the cheapest flight, which maybe that's what you have to do, it's often better to fly always under the same airline, because as long as you're part of their frequent flyer system and all that stuff, you'll start earning additional perks, and then sometimes you'll get extra discounts and things like that. That's part of the reason I selected United specifically. The other part is they're also based here in Chicago, so it's the central hub, so they have the most flight options everywhere. But another cool thing about them, at least that applies to this, is they have this app called Mileage Plus X, and you tie it to your frequent flyer account, and then what happens is you can use it to buy gift cards, and then the gift cards give you miles. So for example, GameStop is on there, right? So you can go into a GameStop and it's like, hey, I'm gonna buy all these things anyway. Let me first buy a gift card, which costs the exact to the penny same amount of money as it would to just pay with a credit card or pay with cash. But while it pays for the items I'm about to get, it also earns me a whole bunch of miles that I can then later spend to take your mother to Guam or whatever you got to do. So in the case of GameStop, I think it was like 4 miles per dollar, which in of itself is not going to be this like huge life-changing experience, but that shit adds up, man. So that's just a little pro tip for people who like to fly. So yeah, I got that plus some miles. On top of that, after that store, I walked around a bit and I saw something I was not expecting to see at all. I saw this little store and there was like this kiosk looking thing, and it had a Super Nintendo and like a GameCube in it, and I was like, tunnel vision. I'm like, I'm gonna go over there. So I go into this store and I can only describe it as like an all-purpose nerd type of store. Like it had a whole section for toys, and it had a whole section for cards, and it had a section for video games, that kind of thing. And it actually had a surprisingly impressive amount of retro game content. Like, I can't imagine there's any place in Guam that has more than that store. It seems like the place that everyone just goes, if they have any retro stuff, they bring it there, because like, where else are you gonna bring it? That's kind of the vibe I got. And I was like, oh shit, so I'm like looking around. The other thing that's weird about that store is that it had very generic pricing. It was kind of like, almost every video game was exactly the same price, kind of regardless of what it is. So for example, this didn't happen, but if they had like Rule of Rose, in a mint, flawless condition, $10. If they had a disc only, NCAA football 2K4, $10. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. It's basically always exactly the same price. So it was an interesting thing to kind of dig through. And on top of that, they also came up and told me like, hey, we're having a buy one, get one half off sale going on. Anything in the store, you buy something, the other one, the cheaper one, is half off. It's like, all right, cool. Of course, I found out later that that's just their general policies. It's always like that, which is awesome, I guess. So if you think about it, if you buy 2 video games that are $10, it's really just 15. Great. So I'm looking around, and the first thing that catches my eye is this. This is Godzilla Unleashed for the PlayStation 2. This was the third in a series. I believe the first one was Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, and then the second one was Godzilla Save the Earth, both of which I have for the original Xbox. However, this third one only came out on the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo Wii. Between the two, I'd rather have the PlayStation 2 version, at least so I can use a real controller. Granted, to be honest, I honestly don't remember if the Wii version uses like the Pro controller or GameCube controller or whatever, but yeah, I'd just rather play it on the PlayStation 2. So yeah, the only issue with this one was that the disc was not in the best of shape. And I knew that. I saw it, I looked right at it, and I knew it was kind of fucked. And I was just kind of gambling that maybe it'll work, and if it doesn't, hopefully I can get it resurfaced. I came back here, and yes, the disc definitely had damage issues. So as of now, what I have is a case and a manual and a disc that kind of works. It does need resurfacing, and then I'll see if I can restore it properly. But yeah, I kind of got Godzilla Unleashed. I also noticed they had a big section for Sega Genesis, oddly enough, but it was kind of a lot of the same titles. Like there was some Master System and Genesis. There was like 8 copies of Dick Tracy. It was really weird. But one game they had that I grabbed for sure was Slaughter Sport. Now, I'd never heard of this game before. It's in like amazing condition, this particular copy, and it's like a Mortal Kombat clone. Probably not a particularly good one, to be honest with you, because again, I've never heard of this before, and I've never seen the series go on or anything like that, but yeah, technically there it is, and yeah, just cool to have. So you put those together, at this point you're talking 15 bucks instead of the 20. The next thing I saw up that was just like, wow, that's cool, was this. This is Twisted Metal X for the PlayStation 1. Now Twisted Metal X, I had never heard of this, ever. Now all it is, I mean, I look at the artwork, I know immediately what it is. It's Twisted Metal 2, but why is it called Twisted Metal X? Okay, it's the Japanese version, but what else is the story to that? Is that just what they called it, or is it some sort of director's cut, or what the fuck is it? So I looked into it, and that's literally all it was just, this is just Twisted Metal 2 with a different name. Now, Twisted Metal 2, for those who don't know, is like my all-time favorite PlayStation 1 game. I love that game. And so I wasn't planning to pick up a Japanese variant of it, and all the times I've been in Japan, I've never really sought it out, but at the same time, I've never seen it either. And then that kind of dawned on me. It's like, I've never seen this before. So I checked a couple of websites, your basic ones like eBay and stuff, and I really couldn't find much information. The only place I found any results really was like Amazon Japan, and even there it was like 70 to 90 type of range. It was an expensive game. And they wanted 10 bucks for it, and I was like, all right, fuck it. So that's what I ended up doing. I picked that up. And then the last thing I got from that store, and the last thing I got from Guam, which was a real shocker, they had this drawer full of cartridges, and so I was just digging around in there, and then I found an N64 game that I was like, oh shit, I want that. It's Pachinko something 365. Now that may not be the most enthusiastic recollection of something that was obviously I wanted so bad, but the thing that's cool about it is this is a Japanese exclusive N64 game, and like I said, and this is a Japanese game too, obviously. Even though I went to Japan on this trip, I never technically got anything, and yet still came up with some Japanese games. Hey. But this one, I kind of want to get, I've been saying it for a while now, I want to get a full Japanese exclusive N64 set, and I'm like damn close. Like I'm down to like 5 games. Well, this was one of them. And in all the times I've been to Japan, I knew to look for this. I've never seen it there. And then online, I've seen it a few times for 70 bucks, something like that. They wanted $10. So I was like, all right, shit. Like I couldn't believe it. So I was happy to pick that up. So then I noticed something. So I took all these items to the register, and I was expecting it to say $30, plus tax. But the grand total was $30. And I was like, all right, so I paid it. And I noticed on the receipt, it actually specifically said sales tax 0. And I was like, is that just something about the store? Like, what is that? Then I started looking at, the receipt to GameStop, and I noticed, oh shit, there was no sales tax on that. And I looked at all these other receipts from like, even when I went to a grocery store, everything was 0. And then I looked it up. Guam basically doesn't have sales tax. And I was like, oh, score, I've been saving on this and I had no fucking idea. So yeah, there you go. That was awesome. But yeah, as far as that trip stuff goes, that's really what I picked up there. Now, moving on, I got a Wii U game. If you guys don't know, I've been trying to get a full Wii U set for quite some time. I am super close. I'm sorry, I don't remember who sent this to me, but somebody sent me a link to this particular game saying, hey man, it's super cheap on Amazon right now, so if you don't have it, grab it. And it turns out I didn't have it. Mass Effect 3. Obviously the Wii U never got the whole series or anything like that, but at least it got one of them. But yeah, this was like just a few dollars, brand new on Amazon. So I was very happy to pick that up, considering that I only need a few of the games, and oddly, this was one of them. So thank you to, I'm sorry who, I think it was on Twitter, somebody suggested it, so thank you very much for that. After that, I was at home at some point, I think, and I just kind of felt like there was one particular game I really wanted to go out and get. And then I kind of had this bug where I was thinking like, my Best Buy Gamers Club Unlocked membership is about to expire. For those who don't know, Best Buy offered a service where if you paid $30, you would get 2 years of coverage, and in that 2 years, what you get is 20% off of all new games, as well as extra reward zone points and all this stuff. And so it's an amazing deal, and there's a reason they're not doing it anymore. So they're just honoring the last of everybody's contract who signed up. Mine, unfortunately, expires very soon. And so I was like, oh man, I just felt this desire to go take advantage of it. So I went over to Best Buy and I picked up one particular title, which was this. This is New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, which I loved this game on the Wii U. Played it entirely. Also played the new Luigi game, or new Super Luigi U. This one has both of them on it, and it has some new content as well. I hear a lot of people saying they don't really like this version. I don't know why. I've quite enjoyed it so far. I've been playing it on a plane a lot. You know, that's how I've been doing it. I mean, which tells you something, because I used to play the Switch a lot on flights, and then I kind of got away from it because I was flying too much. But then suddenly, with this game, I kind of got back into it. I was like, yeah, no, this is a perfect airplane game experience. So I've really been enjoying that. But again, while I was in the store, I decided I was gonna just dig around and see what else I could, you know, go for. Another Switch game I got was Golf Story. Technically, it's a limited run games game, but it's being sold at Best Buy along with, I think, Yooka-Laylee. And yeah, I didn't pick that one up, but I got this. And the reason I got this, and I wouldn't have normally, is that my buddy Chip speaks very highly of this game in its digital form. I know a lot of people say this game is like amazing, even though it's, you know, golf. It's not what you would expect. It's not like Tiger Woods type of golf. It's like some sort of golf RPG or whatever. Like, people say it's really a lot of fun. So I was willing to try it out, so there we go. I will play it eventually, I'm sure, but for now, at least I have it. And then I got a whole bunch of Xbox One stuff. Mostly discounted items, clearance items, because once they're that cheap, you also get 20% off of that. It's just amazing. So here's what I got. I got the Inside and Limbo combo pack. Limbo is a really fun game, by the way. So I got that. Injustice 2, which I'm sure a lot of you guys know, big cool fighting game. Little Nightmares Complete Edition. I could be misremembering this, but I could swear there was an earlier version of this that came with like a plushie and no disc. This version obviously doesn't have the plushie, but it does have a disc, and that's more important to me. So I got that. It also has all the DLC, but that's all like on a code, so I'm not entirely certain if that recollection about the previous version not having a disc is correct or not. Don't Starve, the Mega Pack, which is basically the game plus, again, some DLC. And then finally, Overcooked 2, which I've heard many good things about. But yeah, I picked all those up at Best Buy, and I was happy to do that. Because just some cool stuff, and I gotta, you know, enjoy the Gamers Club Unlocked while the brief time where I still have it. But next up, this month I also went to New York very briefly for a Ubisoft event, and then San Francisco for another Ubisoft event. And at the time I record this, I'm about to go back to San Francisco for yet another Ubisoft event. Yet, you will see this video after I've already come back from that Ubisoft event, because that's how reality works. But here's what I got, at least in the New York one. They gave me a badge this is for Trials Rising, which is a really fun game, by the way. Not something I would have expected to like. When I first played it at E3 of 2018, I was like, whatever. But I ended up loving this fucking game. And then they also just threw in some stickers and shit, which is cool of them. And then I also, after that, the second one was for Far Cry New Dawn, which was cool. I once again got to briefly hang out with Greg, aka The Father, and we took a new photo, as you can see there. Still loyal to him. If you're not familiar with that joke, I had previously taken a photo with him at a much bigger Far Cry 5 event. Really nice guy, by the way. But yeah, they gave me a badge for that. So that's cool, but they also sent me a little care package of stuff, Ubisoft I mean, and so here's what I got. South Park, The Stick of Truth for the Xbox One, physical edition, which is kind of an interesting release, because I'm not going to throw out the idea, oh, this is going to be rare, but I do think it'll be kind of an odder title down the road, and my reason for that is this game was originally a PS3 and Xbox 360 game. And that's where most people got it. So what happened is when they did the Fractured But Whole, they included digital versions for PS4 and Xbox One of this release. Also, the 360 version was made backwards compatible for Xbox One. So there was a whole lot of ways to play this game. But like, I think everybody who got Fractured But Whole automatically got this game as well, digitally. So the only people who would want to buy the physical edition, you know, years later, or a year later, would be either people like me who wanted a physical edition of it, people who bought Fractured But Whole, but, you know, couldn't, got it used perhaps, and the code was, you know, redeemed or whatever, or finally, just people who never got Fractured But Whole at all and just kind of went, oh, all right, that's cool, like shelf buy, I mean, you know, impulse type of buy, I'll grab that. So, I don't know, I think this might be one of the stranger ones down the line, but then again, Ubisoft titles are usually printed with such volume that they're not usually considered very rare, but who knows, who knows. And then the other thing they sent me was Assassin's Creed Odyssey Gold Edition, you know, in the steel case. So this has the season pass and all the content and stuff. This is pretty cool. Again, I got to go to an event for this one as well. And I'm very on the record. I don't typically like Assassin's Creed stuff all that much, but this game I really quite enjoyed, or what I've played of it so far. So now I got the full thing, and I know there's more content coming for it, including like remastered editions of I think Assassin's Creed 3 and Liberation or whatever that are included with this. So that's really cool. So thank you to my buddies over at Ubisoft. Next up, like I said, I went to New York very briefly, and I had talked to Dan at Videogames New York, which is a store out there I've been to many times. And Dan's cool enough that every time he's one of the guys who publishes a lot of the new Dreamcast games that come out, specifically by Josh Prod. And what he'll do a lot of times, he'll just ship them to me, and then eventually, you know, I'll open them up and I'll make a video. But in this case, I knew I was going to be in New York, and I told him, he's like, well, all right, swing by, and I'll just hand you a copy. So he gave me a copy of the newest one for review purposes. This is Fade to Black Flashback. This is the direct sequel to Flashback, and I'll be doing more, you'll get more information on this later. Like I said, this will get its own video at some point, but just a quick shout out to Video Games New York for hooking me up with this, so thank you very much. And yes, brand new Dreamcast game, awesome. Moving on. I already talked about this thing, which, as it turns out, because I got it in Guam, it was only 10 bucks. It was 10 bucks flat. Same with the other stuff over there. Cool item I got that's not anything official, but I wanted it because I just thought it was neat. This is a vinyl record of Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest. This is made by a dude in Greece. This is like basically an Etsy project. This is not officially licensed merchandise, but it's really good. And part of the reason I got it was because this is one of my all-time favorites, like possibly top 10 video games of all time. And I've always really enjoyed the music in it. So the idea of getting in wax, as you might, you know, sometimes it's described, even though it's not technically accurate, I wanted it. And I've listened to it a couple of times, and I quite enjoy it. And you know that's saying something, because I am not a music guy. I'm not an audio guy. And for the longest time, I always thought the whole like, oh, it sounds better on vinyl thing. I was like, sounds like bullshit to me. But over the years, like a few years ago, a guy named Spock Avriel, fan, sent me a vinyl record player, and I've got a couple records since. And for stuff that I'm really familiar with, certain scores, I'll listen to them on vinyl. I'm like, okay, I was wrong. Everything on vinyl just seems to sound better. I quite enjoy it. So having this on vinyl is pretty cool. Even though it's not a legitimate piece of merchandise, I still liked it. Moving on, though, I got a couple of packages here. The first one actually comes from my buddy Rob Janos. I didn't know he was sending me anything. He just sent me like a mystery package. Technically it arrived in December, but I had already filmed the previous episode of PlayLoad, so I couldn't include it. And I did not expect to be seeing him either, because when I went to New York, he was cool enough to pick me up at the airport, and we hung out for a while. Got some food. Really good pizza, by the way. If you're this is just New York advice for people who are not from New York, who ever want to go. There's a New York thing, is the pizza, and every New Yorker has their own specific pizza place. Like, nah, man, that place on Bleecker, that's the good one. You're like, everybody's got their opinion. You want my opinion? There's a place right next to the MetLife building called Uncle Paul's Pizza. I'm giving them a shout out because they fucking deserve it. Their pizza is amazing. I love that place. So if you're ever in New York, you're ever in Manhattan specifically, that's Adam's recommendation on some New York style pizza is Uncle Paul's Pizza. I love it there. Anyway, so we went there. But anyway, I didn't know I was going to see him. So he had sent me this, and it was just kind of funny. I still don't actually know what's in it because he wouldn't tell me, and that was the whole point. So we're going to open the mystery package right now. I've got my box cutter here. Cut into it. And Rob, I want to say this too, because I told him this, and I always tell everybody this type of thing. You don't have to send me stuff. It's not necessary. It just doesn't need to be. But that said, still, thank you, Rob, who included a letter. Merry Christmas from the great state of New Jersey. Hope you're having a happy holiday season. Well, it's already over, but yes, I did. You've always said that you wanted one of these, and I just so happened to find one at my local thrift shop. Hopefully you can have someone mod it for your use. From one weary traveler to another, enjoy it, Rob. Rob's an awesome guy, and he also, yeah, he travels almost as much as I do. Oh, okay. I get immediately what it is. This is, if I'm correct in my assessment, yes, it is exactly what I think it is. This is an Atari Flashback 2. I just held it very awkwardly. But yeah, this is an Atari Flashback 2. This is probably the only clone console that I would actually, like in a true clone console sense, can actually recommend. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of these things over the years, those like, there's like, here's a Sega Genesis with 80 games built in. I fucking hate all of those things. They're all crap. The same with the Intellivision ones, the Atari ones, they all suck. This one is a notable exception. The Atari Flashback 2, specifically, that version, the one that's sitting here right in front of me. And the reason for that, the Model 1 of this was what was known as an NOAC, which actually means Nintendo on a chip. It literally is replicating Nintendo NES hardware for the Atari Flashback 1. And essentially what they did was they wrote an Atari 2600 emulator for the NES that ran on this little chip, and that was your box. And it was shit. And that's usually how they do it because it's just cheaper. But the Flashback 2, the guy who designed this, actually went in and decided, because he had more time, he wanted to do it correctly. So for all intents and purposes, from a pure hardware standpoint, this thing is a complete replica of an Atari 2600, like hardware perfect. It actually even has, he actually put spots on the board to make it super easy to modify and install a cartridge slot, which is what Rob's referring to in his note. And that's neat, not only because it's more modern technology, it's more reliable, presumably. It also has onboard composite video out, which no version of the Atari 2600 ever had. Yes, you can modify an Atari 7800 for composite video, and then you would get basically the same experience. But yeah, so technically, there it is. So thank you very much for that, Rob. I wasn't expecting that at all. That's very, very cool. But yes, he's right. I do have to get it modded, otherwise it's limited to still being a clone console. But that's definitely a worthwhile potential project there. So thank you very much, Rob. Again, you didn't have to do that. Nobody has to do stuff like that. But that said, that's cool of you. Thank you so much. And the last thing up is a quasi-mystery package I've got here from Japan. This actually comes from the city of Yokosuka. Yokosuka is a city south of Tokyo. I've been to multiple times now. It's actually where my favorite game of all time, Shenmue, takes place. Now, the reason this package is here is that I did a video for IGN Japan, in Japan, specifically in Yokosuka, talking about what Shenmue meant to people in the West, or fans in the West, specifically people like me. And it was part of a thing for tourism in the city of Yokosuka. And I wasn't expecting this, but the city of Yokosuka sent me a thank you package, and I think I know what's in it, but let's take a look at it just so I can be sure. Very, very neat. Okay, it's got this little envelope, and then it's got a few other things here, some papers. Now let's take it out. Yep, that's kind of what I was figuring it would be. Okay, cool. First and foremost, it includes this. I've already got, but I know what this is. This is the new Shenmue 1 and 2 guide. So when you, I probably should explain a little more context for those not familiar. Currently, or at least, yeah, basically currently, the city of Yokosuka is really owning the fact that Shenmue took place there. And there's been a whole lot of Shenmue merchandise, free tourism type of merchandise out there. So they'll have all these like pamphlets and things, and this is one of them. It's just a guide. It's literally just a guide of the area of Yokosuka, and then it shows you information of like, you know, not only ads for the upcoming release or what was the upcoming release, but also like, hey, you know, you remember this part of the game? Well, that's this thing over here. It's a Japanese guide that shows you all that. Now this one I had. This was the re-released version. They did one of these a year ago that had different artwork. This is a newer one that was exclusively for the Japanese marketplace that just included new artwork from the re-release. So that's what this is. And I've got that one, but they also included this. I've never seen this one before. This did not exist. It may look exactly the same at first, but what this actually is the English variant. When I was in Japan, even this last time, not for the Changing Planes part, but before that, this is the newer, updated version in English. This did not exist. So presumably you can now get this over there, but yeah, this one is brand new for me. I did not know that they had done an English variant of it, so that's very, very cool. And they apparently gave me 2 of them for English, so maybe I'll do some sort of giveaway or find, you know, another super fan that would really like it. They also included a letter directly from the city of Yokosuka. I don't know if I will read this person's name, but it says, Dear Mr. Adam Koralik, thank you very much for your cooperation. I hope for your continued support. Thank you very much. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions about our services. It is an honor to be of service to you. Sincerely, person whose name I probably shouldn't reveal, so I won't. But yeah, just a thank you letter from the city of Yokosuka for being involved in helping to promote their tourism, which wasn't really my intention. It was just, you know, do somebody a solid. The other thing they sent me was this envelope, and I think I know exactly what this is. Yes, it is exactly what I think it is. Oh man, is it the full set? Holy shit, I think it is. Wow, that's awesome. Damn. Okay, so this is neat to me. In Yokosuka right now, as part of this whole thing, they have this thing where you have to go around to all of these spots on the map, like almost like a scavenger hunt. And when you go to all these places, the idea is you're supposed to collect these little coasters. And I think there's, well, let's find out. 12. Pretty sure, yeah, 12. There's 12 spots you have to go to. And if you go to those 12 spots, you can then pick up these random coasters and collect an entire Shenmue set. But you have to actually go to Yokosuka to do it, and I think they stopped doing it by the end of February. But they were cool enough to send me the entire coaster set. Was not expecting that. I actually thought this was going to be some Shenmue merchandise that I was never going to see, like in person. I mean, I know it's just, at the end of the day, it's just a cardboard with pictures on it, but the fact that this came directly from Yokosuka, it's neat, man. It's really neat. It's really cool to me as a Shenmue super fan, just to be involved like this. And sorry, I'm kind of at a loss for words. I just think this is really neat. It's just kind of cool. Yeah, I know it's not even expressing the excitement. I just think it's neat. I'm very happy about this. So yeah, thank you to the city of Yokosuka for having me involved in that. It's just the coolest thing ever. I don't know if you guys actually saw the video or not. I'll try to link it below, and then you can check it out if you want to. I'm just part of a group of people, but I was actually in Japan for it, which was nice. So thank you to them. Thank you to Rob. Thank you to Dan at Videogames New York. Thank you to the people at Ubisoft. Thank you to Guam for not having sales tax. And thank you to whoever, again, I'm sorry. Thank you to whoever sent me the link to Mass Effect 3 there. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you all later.